Today we're putting the Valeton GP-50 head-to-head with GP-5 just to answer one question. Is this upgrade finally worth it? Valeton kindly sent me over this new GP-50, so I just tested it right next to my GP-5. I pushed the DSP, load the NAM captures, check the routing, everything. Just to be clear from the start, this isn't about a better tone. It's about how far you can push the same tone. Today I'm giving you the honest upgrade breakdown, and let's get into it. And the first thing the GP-50 fixes is the biggest limitation of the GP-5, is the interface. The GP-5 does have a screen, but it's very small and limited. Once your sound was set, most of us just ended up avoiding on-units editing and just relied on the app instead. The GP-50 just gives us a proper 177-inch color HD screen, patches name, effects, routing. You can actually see what you're doing. Editing on the unit itself is finally comfortable and practical. So the I/O is also more complete. You get separate left and right outputs. No more external cables for stereo delays or reverbs. USB-C, MIDI in and out, a headphone output, and an expression pedal input. It feels much closer to a GP200 in terms of connectivity. And this is another important upgrade over the GP-5. On the GP-50 you can now choose wet or dry signal independently for left and right outputs. So for this to work properly, you have to use the GP-50 as an audio interface. This option is only available on the USB settings. Once your connections are set, we are just going to the DAW. You can set the input device to the GP-50 and the output to the GP-50 as well. I just prefer to go for the output on my audio interface. The first one goes for the input 1, that's where we have our dry signal, and the second track you go for the input number 2, and this one is for the wet signal. So now let's listen the wet signal. Now the dry signal. Now let's just test this and reamp it. Let's try Quantum DSP, Carnage. This kind of routing wasn't possible on the GP-5, and it makes just the GP-50 much more versatile for recording users. And there's also a rechargeable battery up to 5 hours with USB-C and DC as options. This is quite small upgrade, but I think it's a big plus is that you can just power this almost anywhere. Studio, busking, backpack sessions, very flexible. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's talk about DSP and blocks, because there's a lot of confusion out there about what actually changed from the GP-5 to the GP-50. A lot of people think the GP-50 is just the GP-5 with the screen, and in terms of raw DSP and sound engine, that's actually pretty close to the truth. So the processing power is basically the same on both units. You're not just getting a new sound engine or just a magical better tone. What you're really getting with the GP-50 is a better way to control that same core sound. Bigger screen, deeper editing on the unit, and more routing controls. Let's be clear about the block count, because this is where people, including me at first, just get confused. Both GP-5 and GP-50 support up to 9 active modules in a signal chain. And that includes your compressor drives, amp or NAM, cab or IR, EQ, modulation, delay, reverb. That 9 block limit is the same on both units. So the confusion usually comes from this. When you turn the snap tone on, it shows up like an extra block in the chain. So it can look like you're running 10 modules. But when the snap tone is active, you can't use the regular amp and cab blocks at the same time. So in real DSP terms, you're still working within the same limits. It's not secretly giving you an extra block of processing. Here's one small but important difference though. The GP-50 has slightly more internal memory than the GP-5. That doesn't mean more DSP power blocks today, but it does mean that over time Valeton has a bit more room to squeeze in a few more algorithms or variations on the GP-50. Right now the core sound platform you're working with is the same on both. So in terms of DSP, you're not upgrading to more blocks or a harder processor. you're upgrading to a GP-50 that lets you use the same engine in a more flexible way. Better on-device editing, more I/O, more routing options, and a workflow that fits live and hybrid rigs a lot better. Once you look at this way, the real upgrades start to show up in how you actually use the unit day to day. For example, the looper and drum machine got a lot more usable too. Let me show you. On the GP-50, the looper now supports pre and post placement, has a clearer UI, syncs with your effects tempo, and you finally get a visible looper timer on the screen. Yeah, which sounds small, but makes the looping way easier in practice. The drum machine also unlocks more patterns when paired with the app, so this combo is just actually usable for real practice and sketching ideas. Yeah, but the real question, does it actually sound better? To test that, I just load my custom Plexi NAM capture, same file, same IR, into both units. So let's just listen. Samples 1 and 3 were the GP-5, samples 2 and 4 were the GP-50. So, to me, they're about 99% identical. You're not just paying for better sound, you're just paying for more routing freedom and stability around that sound. And if you like the tones you're hearing so far, I'm building a full GP-50 preset pack around these tones. I'll just leave a link below when it's ready. But there's one thing I asked myself, the so-called analog bypass. Let's clear that up. The GP-50 does have an analog bypass, but only inside the tuner. So in bypass mode, the dry analog signal passes through untouched while tuning, but once you exit the tuner, you're just back into the digital path. This isn't a true full-time true bypass, it's just a tuner feature. So now, who is the GP-50 actually for? If you're coming from a GP-5, here's a short version of what actually changed. If you mainly practice at home and don't need stereo complex routing or NAM all the time, the GP-5 still holds up incredibly well. It's simple, sounds great, and does the job. But if you play live, use stereo rigs, build ambient patches, rely on NAM captures, or want proper routing control, the GP-50 is a massive upgrade. So for the first time at this price point, it stops feeling like a compromise. This is no longer just a practice tool, it can absolutely be a real gigging rig. So if you want the GP-50 or the GP-5, just while it's cheap, I left affiliate links below. They help to support the channel at no extra cost for you. And if you're into this ecosystem, just make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you're a GP-5 user, what's the one thing that would just actually make you upgrade? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.